more. We age out loud and proud. In the world, we give permission for others to do the same. Hi, friends, and welcome to Lessons from Living, where we motivate and inspire you to live a meaningful life by telling stories about people who are doing just that. We're so glad that you've joined us today. If you're over 60 or 65 and feeling a little invisible these days, this episode is for you. Andy Lyons is a pro-age advocate who is using her platform, the Don't Be Caged by Your Age podcast, to help smash those limiting age-related stereotypes that we've all been indoctrinated to accept. But no more. We're going to find a path forward today to break free from that silly mold that society wants to squeeze us all into. And we're going to have a lot of fun in the process because Andy Lyons is nothing if not fun. I'm so pleased to introduce to you today Andy Lyons. Here we go. Hello, Andy. Thank you so much for being with us today on Lessons from Living.
Oh my gosh, Beth, what an honor to spend time with you and your listeners talking about life and all the vicissitudes that happen, the roller coaster ride of it all on this human journey.
Oh, it's great. Well, if you would start by telling us a little bit about your background and how you came to be a pro-age advocate.
Well, how do you encapsulate decades of lived experience, right? I'm 68, about to turn 69 and feeling fine. And so I had a typical sort of beginning professionally that many women did, even those with 4-year degrees, right? Ended up becoming secretaries. I was a secretary early on in the days, and I worked actually for entrepreneurs. And so I got sitting outside their door, really became aware of how the whole business functioned and really loved it. And after earning my MBA and working in banking for 3 years, not because I was a fit, but because I wanted to do financial analysis and learn how bankers thought, I have been on my own since then. As I often say, I've been unemployable since 1992. And I've had a .com business, heavily VC funded. I had a food manufacturing business, and I've had other tech businesses. And then for 8 years, I was a global startup mentor in the startup ecosystem. I had a monthly pitch event here in Boston for 3 years where founders pitched their value props in 30 or 99 seconds. It was so much fun. But what I heard and saw all the time were these ageist remarks that really got me seeing red, Beth. And I knew that most of the people there, due to comments, thought I was in my early 50s when I was really in my mid 60s. And I thought, I'm feeling terrible about my age. And then I hear from investors to other mentors say to founders, oh, please explain your business as if you were telling your grandmother. And then I could feel the smoke coming out of my ears. And I'd be like, I would say, excuse me, we were building tech companies in the 70s. We were gaming with punched cards on mainframes in the early 80s. We had to go from dial phones to internet to emails to learning smartphones. What is this ageist belief that older adults are challenged by technology? Because we weren't born into it? No, we had it harder. We had to transition into all of these things and learn how to use smartphones, smart TVs, computers. I know as a secretary in 1984, no sooner, 1982, I was at a big consulting firm, and we were the initial sort of guinea pigs for IBM PCs, coding and doing all the things to just get a darn letter written. I have to say, because we on typewriters, we had to use whiteout and all the things. I mean, so you made sure you had a good typing skill set because you weren't going to do that letter again, or document, multi-page documents. So it really upset me when they kept saying this thing about explain it to, like you were explaining it to your grandma, and it was never grandpa. So to me, that was gendered ageism. So here we are, decades of sexism in the workplace, and now we're getting gendered ageism. So when I turned 66, I came out on LinkedIn. I've got the sign right here if you do any video. I held up, I took a photo with the Route US 66 sign, Beth, and I came out about my age. And you can even see in the photo, the look on my face is, will you still love me now that you know I'm this friggin' old? But the post was called Don't Be Caged by Your Age, because I wanted to talk about how people get caged because, oh, well, because the clock strikes midnight on 60, 65. That's it. You're done. See you bye. And I'm telling you, pastures are wonderful for horses, but not humans. And so for me, doing that post, letting people know my age, it was scary, but also liberating. And I was able to hear from it went viral, and I was able to hear from folks in the comments all their different experiences, from being kicked out, especially if you're a woman in PR and advertising, getting kicked out at 50 because you're too old, to folks who had retired and found ways to fuel their pocketbook and their passion, right? And told me all these great stories. So I learned a lot. And as a result, in March of 2024, I launched my sixth podcast since 2012 called Don't Be Caged by Your Age, where we shatter age-related expectations and stereotypes through conversations with folks who are thriving after 65, and at the same time providing representation. Well, what does that look like, right? Because if you see it, you can be it. And the resources, because a lot of people are feeling so invisible and downtrodden, and why bother because of all the anti-aging messages they've been slapped with from institutional or organizations, corporations, from society, and also the one I like to address the most, which are those internalized ageist beliefs we tell ourselves that sometimes we don't even know we've been indoctrinated to have.
Right. I agree with you. And I'd like to zero in on those. You mentioned technology as being one of the things, one of those indoctrinated beliefs. But I agree with you that sometimes the indoctrination can be so complete that it is internalized, and these people don't even recognize what an age-related expectation or stereotype is. So can you just talk a little bit more about what some of those are? So we might have an awareness here of, oh my goodness, this is
Oh
what I've
my
been
goodness.
thinking.
Well, first of all, I just want to share a statistic from 2021, which is the World Health Organization defining retirement as an epidemic costing societies billions of dollars. So there we know it's been identified as a problem, because as people leave their jobs or are forced out of their jobs or can't get a new job because of their age, what are the stories they're telling themselves, right? So, for example, someone retires, they've worked hard. Maybe they've been a long time, a lifer at a corporation. They might get a golden watch or whatever, a nice retirement party. And they're thinking, oh, I'm going to travel. I'm going to play golf all the time. I'm going to do all these wonderful things, Gart. Well, 6, 12, 18 months later, they're like, yeah, okay, I did them all. I did all the things if they had the money, right? And if they're healthy, and they're sitting there going, now what? Because maybe they're 66, 67. They could be living another 20, 30 years. What are they going to do with those years, right? The messages they're telling themselves are they're too old to learn new things. They're too old to try something maybe that they've always wanted to do but haven't. I've interviewed many folks who had never written a book before, who put together a memoir, or a fiction story. And they took courses, some of them went back to school, and they had a blast. They were able to learn and transition. But another message I know many listeners hear here all the time is, well, the memory starts to go. I can't really rely on my ability to think quickly and all of those things. That's complete hogwash. Hang out with someone in their 20s for a second. They forget things all the time. They don't know why they walked into the room. They are distracted. You feel really good, in fact, about how well you think after hanging around with someone in their 20s, with all due respect to our Gen Zs and our 20-year-olds. But what I'm saying is we often get really harsh because we can't forget something. And one of my guests, Jeanette Liardi, she's a social gerontologist. And what she shared was that it's because our brains at this age are like the Library of Congress. So you got to go through a lot of rows of books, right? To get to that answer that you're trying to find. Oh, what's the name of? And as I often say to folks, Beth, could you please refresh my browser? Because we can't be remembering everything. We have too much in our brains already. So I think one of the harsh things that we end up telling ourselves is that we, become almost stupid, and we're not. We're very smart. And in corporations, Beth, generations of talent are being wasted, especially when you think of where we're at right now in June of 2025. Where we are seeing a lot of upheaval and really difficult times. Well, if you've been working for the last 20 years, you might have had a little blip in 2008 with the real estate crisis, but really it's not been that bad. Those of us who've been around 40 decades, 40 years, we've seen really difficult times, and we learned, how do we bring in new clients under these circumstances? How do we manage teams under these awful circumstances? How do we get through 9/11 and hold each other's hands through a difficult time like this? We know. And so it's even more important and more valuable for organizations to bring on folks over the age of 60 because unflappable and their deep lived experience knowledge that they bring.
Right. And they can see the other side. We're not living in a little 1 week period of time. We realize, as you say, we've seen what happened prior. We know that we can get through this. That's a very good point. What about, well, let me ask you this. Why do you think these expectations and stereotypes have become so pervasive in our society? Um, it, it's just incredible how they're in every piece of our society, whether it's our media or
Yeah,
any place else.
how they frame up a story.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately, older adults, they show people who, hunched over, women wearing cardigan sweaters. Someone did this recently. I think it was the founders of Blue Sky. They had a meme about their first year anniversary, and they showed walking a grandma back to her room at a nursing home. I almost said, well, all of us in the pro-aging community had a fit. But this is prevalent. So it's important for us to have intergenerational experiences. We don't want to just be hanging around with folks our age. We want to be working with folks from their 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s so they can see that we're vibrant, connected, curious, capable, bringing solutions that we're like, oh, that's obvious, isn't it? To situations. But the reason it's so prevalent is because the media likes to portray us as being, again, I keep using that word, stupid, feeble, not valuable. And don't get me started on the forever young, anti-aging. Everything is anti-aging. Why would you not want to age? First of all, if you're not aging, you're going to be dead because you died. So it is a privilege. You and I are privileged to still be here. We know so many folks who did not make it this far. So, first of all, stop telling us to stop aging. And then, secondly, in corporations, I don't know what it is going to take for them to start realizing the tremendous value they have in a seasoned older adult employee and having them be part of those groups inside the corporation. The statistics are there. When you keep your older adults on board, you are going to be more profitable and have better results because they're able to say, yeah, that you don't want to do that because this will happen. So let me save you some time. And it doesn't mean someone over 65 has to be working any grueling hours unless they want to, because we all know we've gotten so good at what we do, we can get that done in 20 hours, in 25 hours, right? And so corporations really need to start reviewing how they are treating and how their indoctrinated beliefs are, because let me tell you, many of the folks in the C-suite, when they're reaching 65, are panicking. They are used to having this cachet, right? This, uh, a perceived perception from folks of being connected and on top of their game. Retirement is not what they want. 70% of pre-retirees want to keep working past the age of 65. Why? Why not? If they love what they do or they want to go into a different industry. So this messaging we're always seeing about aging is why the World Health Organization is calling it an epidemic costing societies billions of dollars. People start sitting on the couch with nothing to do, and the messages they're telling themselves are, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And especially in our age group, because what we saw from our grandparents, right? They were really old in their 60s, a lot of them, and they were done with life. They'd had enough, right? And so that's what we saw. But again, all the messaging that we've received over the years. And my job as the host of Don't Be Caged by Your Age is to flip that script and show people. In fact, Beth, I am so excited to go into my 70s because everybody I've interviewed in their 70s are having their best decade ever. And the side benefit from the podcast I never imagined were the 40 and 50-year-olds coming up to me going, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to age now. I'm already starting to plan, like, what do I want to try out? What new thread do I want to pull on? New way of working. I'm going to save so I can maybe write a book or go on this adventure, but also maybe explore doing this with my time and talent, right? That's a huge benefit because we don't want the younger generations to be getting scared.
Well, I love your idea of educating the younger. It's an education process. It seems like in many segments of our society, we don't have exposure to older people throughout our life. You know, they've kind of been removed from our lives as we're growing up. And so maybe we just don't know. Maybe it's a matter of putting those young employees in working shoulder to shoulder with the older people and letting them see how vibrant someone who's over 65 can be.
Right? I mean, we've all hopefully seen the movie The Intern with
Mm-hmm.
Anne Hathaway and Robert De Niro. That's a perfect example of him coming back into a workplace and adding so much value because of his experience.
Yes.
And she was nasty to him in the beginning,
Right, right.
dismissive and awful.
Well, one of the folks you talked about beautyism. This is someone you interviewed as being a national disease. And I'm assuming she means the focus on youth and beauty. And, you know, we've seen in our society how younger and younger women, particularly, are having cosmetic procedures done, getting Botox in their 20s when that used to be reserved for people our age, right? Um, you are a beautiful senior, Andy, but, not everyone ages so well. And so I'm wondering, for something like this where you want to be able to put your mug out there and look halfway decent, I could see how that would be an obstacle for some people who said, I just don't feel that my physical attributes are conducive to exposing myself. What are your thoughts about that?
I have so many.
Let's hear them.
Well, first of all, yes, we are blessed with the DNA package, right? That might add or help aging well. Also, we may have made good choices, right? Of not smoking and staying healthy and hydrated and all those things. But even if you don't, you are who you are. And this is the best time for radical self-love because let's face it, you look in the mirror and you go, "Who's this? Where'd you come from?" I mean, and don't get me started on you wanna go get into a bathing suit and go somewhere. There are things on my body, like, I look at and shudder when I see. I mean, I just there's so many moles and barnacles, it's like and veins everywhere. It's like, how to not diss yourself, right? And go, "What the heck? Nobody needs to see this, including me." However, there's a wonderful woman on I think she's on TikTok too, but on Instagram, Welcome Heidi. She talks about this all the time. She shows up with all her wrinkles, her flab, all the things, and really exemplifies what this radical self-love for this age needs to be. And the more we age out loud and proud in the world, we give permission for others to do the same. So we show up in all our glory, with lipstick or without, and feel proud and good about who we be and let our beauty shine out from our eyes and our smile and our expressions in the world. That is pro-aging. And it breaks my heart that these young women right up there with those 5-inch stilettos. I mean, give me a break on the footwear. Jeez. But along with the Botox and having to be beautiful, this is why, folks, TikTok is a bigger hit than Instagram because on Instagram, you got to be so coiffed and pulled together and perfect. On TikTok, you'll see them. Nobody cares about that. They present completely from the front seat of their car, walking wherever as they truly are. And so finding and doing whatever work you have to do to accept that this is where you are. And do you want to doll it up? I don't know. That's up to you. I just interviewed Susie Lang. She photos women 60 plus. Everyone, go to women.60.plus on Instagram to see the photos that she's taken of women over 60 in just all natural light, not studio light. It's phenomenal. And so I have a deep appreciation, though, for how hard this is because of the beauty challenges. So I just was interviewed by Vogue Business on a boomer beauty post that they had, talking about what products I like to use and how and what beauty is like for us at this age, but also what we expect from our brands that we use. And how important, if they are not putting out pro-aging, we're not having anything to do with it. Nobody is more brand loyal than a baby boomer generation person. And so I provided the journalist with ideal cut and paste quotes. So to make sure that I would be, I felt like I wrote the post for her. And so that I would be accepted into this wonderful, wonderful article on boomer beauty. But talking about just, hey, a little bronzer, a little something to bring, because I'm a pale, English sort of body, and something to lighten my eyes up with some mascara, a little sparkly eyeshadow, and my lipstick. Right, that's it. I'm not going to go super hard duty. Something I can put on within a few minutes. But it's such a tough topic, Beth, because again, this acceptance. And then, of course, we get the big slam. Oh, you look great for your age. Well, immediately, that's patronizing, first of all. But secondly, what am I supposed to look like then? You can just say, you look great. Okay, thanks. I feel great. That works just as well. And so there's just all these slams out there, and people think, or, oh, I thought you looked 45, right? And like, oh, or 65 is the new 45. Oh, no, 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 no. It's 65, folks. I was at dinner with a group, Beth, and a well meaning gentleman in his 40s was going around the room asking the folks at the table what they were up to. And he called this woman beside me, young lady, what's your story? And I just said, oh, learning opportunity here. This is wonderful. With all due respect, Jim, whatever his name was, Julie is about to turn 55. You can call her Queen, Goddess, Your Highness, or her name Julie. But young lady, that is the worst insult that you can give. And I want the women at the table to understand that they need to push back when someone calls them a young lady. We love our young ladies from ages 18 to maybe 30 or a young lady. We have lived decades. You would never call a 50 plus man young man. You just wouldn't, right? So again, that gendered ageism.
Yes. And they think they're being kind or
I
funny or
know.
something. I
They
don't
need
know.
they need to be
It's
retrained.
it so misses the mark. When I asked you about your guest, you talked about the caliber of the people. Many of them appear to be high-powered founders, CEOs. Confidence is probably part and parcel of who they are. And I think that oftentimes the reason that individuals in their later years fail to break out of this mold that we've been talking about that society imposes upon us is because they lack that confidence. So if someone tells them that they're compromised in their later years, they're likely to accept it and believe it. So for someone who doesn't have the confidence of an Andy Lines, what would you say to encourage them to reject those stereotypes that, like we were talking about, they likely have
Yes.
internalized?
Well, like in anything, comparison is the thief of joy,
Yes, ma'am.
right? So, first of all, no comparing allowed. And while I have certainly a few high caliber individuals, I do have folks who, like Sarah, who was on the show, who lost her vision in the height of her career at the age of 50 and had to learn how to do everything. First of all, she had to learn to accept that she was blind, which of course took many years. But today, at 70, she is creating content on Instagram using Ray-Ban glasses that allow her to video. It's so extraordinary. I mean, this is highly innovative technology, right? And doing all the things so that she can give people examples of what it's like to age in a way that's accepting of the limitations that happen to our bodies. Another person I interviewed, Sandra Allison, who has a wonderful resume business. She's 72, and she also helps folks get on boards, which is a great thing to do as you age, right? Boards are always looking and they pay. Um, like she can't see out of one eye. She, can barely walk, but she has found all the ways to still stay vibrant. And so it comes back to what works for you. What would make you happy? So if you try to filter out the comparison going on to folks, what is it that would give you the confidence to take that step forward? And sometimes it's joining a group. It's, having conversations with other people. Mental health is so important as you age. And we were talking to Dr. Regina recently, who trains folks in the medical establishment to have proper medical and mental health practices for older adults. I don't know about you, Beth, but when I turned 65, all of a sudden my annual physical became a pat in the head. You're doing fine, honey. What happened to all the testing, right? So, but to get back to your question, to find the confidence is to listen and absorb what others are doing and see what would work for you. And know that you are truly valuable because you decide that you're valuable. No one else can tell you, money can't tell you, good health can't tell you, all of those things. The only thing that can tell you that you're worthy and valuable is you. So, whatever work you can do through therapy, watching videos, listening to meditations, or other podcasts that can help you, work with an executive coach, folks who can help you with those tiny steps, those tiny habits to help build up the fact that you need to be able to walk in a room and not be afraid to be the oldest person in the room. And if I can continue with that thought, Beth, finding ways to engage in intergenerational communities. For example, in early 2024, I knew I wanted community. I was looking at the other things, local community, by the way, and I was looking at all the things I could join. I just wasn't tickled by any of them. And I thought, you know what? I have been podcasting since 2012. Why don't I start like a support group for podcasters in the New England area? We have 6 states here in New England. And so wouldn't that be fun if I did a monthly meetup in person for podcasters? Of course, I had to walk with my fear. What if you hold a party and no one shows up, right? I had to shore up those fears by knowing at least one person was going to be there. But it turned out to be a huge hit. And 16 months later, we still get new people every event. Folks keep showing up. We have a paid membership going, and it's intergenerational. People in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. We got one guy who's 80. So all the decades are being represented, and it's wonderful. So sometimes maybe you got to start that community, right, of intergenerational folks so that you continue to feel confident in your age with other ages. Does that make sense?
Sure. I love that. So it sounds like we're working on a blueprint for thriving after 65 here. If if we're starting with community, I love that. What other aspects would you include?
To thrive after 65,
Yes.
start pulling on threads. There's this wonderful book. I highly, highly recommend it, called Don't Retire, Rewire by Jerry Sedler, Jeri Sedler. She's phenomenal. And what I love best about Jerry is that she took all this data from 20 years ago, is when she first wrote the book, and pulled it together. And it's all about what fuels your passion, what fuels your pocketbook, right? And the whole book are questions that she asks to help you dive into. Because a lot of times you may have a passion, like, oh, I love arranging flowers. And people say, oh, you must be a flower arranger then. And then you start doing it and you're like, this is the loneliest thing I've ever done in my life. I feel so isolated. I love doing this for me, but I hate doing it for money and for people. That's important. There are no mistakes, but you got to pull on that thread sometimes to realize that. But in Jerry's book, Don't Retire, Rewire, she helps you ask all these questions to pull together so that you can say, oh, I love doing that. I might want to go back to teaching. I may want to become a flight attendant. I may want to fill in the blank. One of my favorite stories was this gentleman who retired and he took up gardening. And then he noticed, like, gosh, I've got so many bees here. This is amazing. And he learned about bees. He thought, I'm going to have some beehives. So he got into beehives and got into that. And then he's like, well, what am I going to do with all this honey? Well, next thing he knew, he started a honey business, right? So you just keep pulling on threads and seeing where they go. Some folks go back to school and get degrees. They certainly are on TikTok doing some fun things there, sharing knowledge. To me, it's just, I have resources on my newsletter and on the website, Don't Be Caged by Your Age, to find ways to explore what might be good for you. Maybe watercolor was a passion that you'd put aside. I interviewed a woman who was a CPA for 40 years. Okay. Now, that we often readily admit sounds like a really dry, boring career for all those years. What did she do when she retired? She became a voice actor. She hired a coach out of Colorado who got her up and running. She built her little studio at home, which didn't cost very much, in a closet. And at 72, she is booked solid. She does museum voice, for the narrations at museums, car dealers, certainly a couple of books, right? Whether it's for children or adults, so many different things. And of course, you'd think to yourself, I would never think to do that at that age, right? Or you become a podcaster like you and I have, which is very easy and affordable to do.
Yes, it is. So we're talking about kind of what lights you up. These are good ideas about zeroing in on that. I've also heard you mention figuring out what your unique value is that no one else can duplicate.
Right.
Do you think that's a similar discernment process? Hopefully the two intersect. Hopefully something that brings you great joy also is something that is your unique value. But how do you figure that out?
That is such a good question. Again, doing the inner work. And if you're really self-directed, you can easily do that, right? But sometimes you need to hire someone, not for too long, but make the investment. Don't think about blowing your money. Think about how you're going to invest in you so that you have a fruitful next few decades. But Seth Godin, who has been around for decades with great marketing advice, his quote, "Sure, it's been done before, but not by you and not for us," is to me the best way to frame up how you could uniquely bring something of yourself that's of value to folks who want to hear it from you, receive it from you. And all you have to do is walk down the bread aisle to see there's plenty of room for all types of ways of expressing yourself. So as much as that might feel scary because you're so stuck in, but what? I highly recommend investing in someone who can help you, give you that homework assignment, right? Have you be accountable, make you answer those questions and pull on threads to find out what does passion look like for me at this age and stage. Because as one of my guests, Judith Kernick, said, we have an energy portfolio to manage when we reach this age, right? What are we going to put our energy toward? How much energy do we have to put toward that? And I don't know about you, Beth, but I have become very discerning about who I spend time with and how much time I spend on anything, because it is a finite thing in our lives, right?
Right. Yes, I love that. I love that energy portfolio. Oh, I figure of speech. That's great. And obviously, health can become more tenuous as you age. But it's also really critical to accomplishing all these meaningful things we've been talking about. So I'm curious, what kinds of things have you done to guard or optimize your health?
Well, and you bring up such a good point, because I think there's a Nelson Mandela quote out there, base your decisions on your hope, not your fears, right? I hope my body will hang in there. I hope we'll stay healthy. I hope I can get on the other side of whatever surgery you need, if you're fighting cancer, all the things, that you can go on and then continue to bring your glow to the world. The number one thing I hear again and again is move your body is so key on every level. It's great for your brain. It's great for your mindset. and it's great for your body. On top of that, when they did the blue zone, where everybody was living for forever, longevity, the number one ingredient that kept these people thriving and staying healthy and passionate about their life was being in community. Not what they ate, drank, smoked, didn't do, right? It was feeling that they belonged in a group. And I don't mean joiner, joining. I mean belonging, where you feel emotionally safe, and that you feel that you're contributing to something bigger than yourself, right? That seemed to be the most important thing, along with move your body. And people, even with arthritis, found that as they moved more, their arthritis lessened. So again, I'm big on walking. I have not a treadmill, because treadmills take up a huge amount of space, but those walking pads that people who do stand-up desks things? I got a walking pad. It's like $150 on Amazon. And I put that in front of the TV. I watch my favorite shows and I'm moving my body. And you can put chairs on either side if your balance isn't doing too well, so you've got something to hold on, but it's easy to prop it up or slip it under a bed. When folks come, or if you don't have the space, it doesn't look obnoxious in your home. It's just a walking pad. But you can sit there and the time can fly by because you would have just been sitting there watching that show. It could be a how-to video for something that you love doing, or listening to a podcast, but you can get your miles in and move your body and, move your arms around and all of that. So those are the two things that I have seen again and again that are super important. A lot of people like to focus on the diet, of course, and other things, but I just found that moving, and of course, weights are important. I have osteoporosis. I'm a white, petite European woman. It was guaranteed, but I don't have to take anything for it. I just have to be careful that I stay strong and make sure I have good balance.
Well, great. Those are great tips. I love that walking pad idea. I'm going
Oh,
to look into that.
please. It's just, nobody even sees it because it's just there on the ground.
Well, we've talked about our hope that corporations will begin to realize the value of older people. I talk a lot about our older years as an opportunity to give back. And it's a time when some older folks have the resources and the time to invest in all kinds of service opportunities. I really don't think there's anything more critical to keeping one alive than having a sense of purpose, like you mentioned a little bit ago. Would you speak to that?
Oh my gosh, the world needs you. First of all, your wisdom, your lived experiences. If there's an organization out there that lights you up, what they're doing, you will find yourself jumping out of bed in the morning with a spring in your step and purpose in your heart, because you know what you're helping the world, the problem that you're helping the world solve, through an organization that desperately needs your talent, your time, and you have the resources to do this as a volunteer. Oh my gosh, absolutely. Look around outside your window. Who in your community could use your help? And remember, these years that you have worked, no matter what you did, you could have been the lunch lady. It doesn't matter. The elementary school, it doesn't matter. You are valuable. Janitorial services that you could have performed for decades, you are extraordinarily valuable because of the wisdom and insights of the human journey that you bring and the knowledge. There are organizations everywhere around you that could use your time, your talent. Certainly, a lot of the entrepreneurship programs out there, whether it's Bold, no, or is it Build? Build, they help the high school students. They start 14 to 18, helping them understand how to solve problems, which is what every entrepreneur does. and such a valuable skill set to have to enter life with. There's entrepreneurship for all. They have a wonderful organization that helps small businesses, the community, whether it's a pop-up, a jewelry store, a food truck, whatever size of business, they help those business owners get the lift they need. And someone with lived experience and a listening ear help those organizations out tremendously. And of course, the food banks and the homeless situation always needs help. But whatever lights you up, I know it's out there for you.
Right. I wonder if you've seen this. I've just seen so many seniors who get in their head, and they become focused, so self-focused, and to me that is it's not interesting, first of all, and it's not a healthy place to be. So I love your suggestions for
Yeah.
getting beyond yourself.
Getting out of your head and you're self-focused. And I know there's probably an adjustment period, especially someone's been working so hard for 40 years. They love going off to play mahjong and they love going off and doing the pickleball and those things. That's wonderful. But at the end of the day, it's not bringing you purpose. And that is an important ingredient, as you said, Beth, for getting out of bed in the morning. So I highly suggest finding an additional thing to those wonderful pastimes because you get so self-involved and then all of a sudden, where is the drive for life?
Yes. Well said. Well, Andy, for someone who is listening who says, this all makes sense, I want a different kind of life. Andy is right on target here, but I don't know where to start. And, starting anything for some people, just that
Right.
is daunting. So if there's one thing you could suggest to start with, we've covered a lot of different ideas here, but if there's something that would help someone who's maybe not a good self-starter, what suggestion would you
Oh,
have for a first step?
come listen to the Don't Be Caged by Your Age
There you
podcast.
go.
We're always talking about ways to get started, but also the resources on the don'tbecagedbyyourage.com website. Go scroll through them. There are so many wonderful resources. Um, the author of The Artist's Way, what is her name? I can't remember her name right now. She has a book for this time of life as well. So you can start the journaling, right? You can start the writing, the internal dialogue through her book if you want to start in that direction. But I have so many other resources there to help you. You might be in a situation where you're a caregiver, right? Not just for an older group, but for a younger group, right? And so how do you manage that? There's resources for the challenges facing caregivers or your beloved could be going in such a serious situation that's where you're putting all your energy and time. Um, so many ways. There are ones that are filled with humor, the resources, as well as practical guides to manage this time of life for who you be. Remember, we don't want to be comparing how other folks are aging. It's about how you are aging and how you want to spend this time of your life.
Right. So for accessing those resources, how can they get in touch with you, see all things Andy Lyons?
Well, Andy at don'tbecagedbyyourage.com. Shoot me an email. That would be great. I'm also on LinkedIn, very active there. I'm also on TikTok. Don't Be Caged by Your Age. I share also on my YouTube channel, Andy Lyons. I share so many wonderful shorts. And these are really short videos of really fun things people are doing well past their prime. And I had one recently of this couple. They were dancing to some, disco song, probably the Michael Jackson's "Don't Stop Till You Get It Up" song, and they're dancing away. They're doing all the moves. The guy's on the floor, and then he's jumping back up. Oh my gosh, that's like millions of views, that little short. But they're inspirational. There's a group in Brooklyn called the Pacemakers. They're a dance club, and they're always dancing, staying alive and doing all the fun songs that we grew up with and came of age to. And what's fun about their videos, you can find them on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, is that they'll share that person's birthday, 1959, 1951, 1949, and they're dancing away and doing all sorts of fun things. There's just so much inspiration out there to sort of help lift your mood. And as you elevate that part of yourself and you're not focused on the aches and the pains and the feeling invisible, and all of a sudden you're thinking, yeah, you're shifting your energy, and you can get uplifted by watching some of these short videos.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, this podcast is called Lessons from Living. And so I like to ask everyone who comes on, in thinking over your life, is there a particular lesson from life that rises to the top for you? It could be something that we've already talked about or something completely different.
Beth, what's worked for me to overcome a lot of trauma is to have a desire in my heart, but not try to drive it to outcome. Let go and let God, so to speak. Know that there's a plan for me, and as long as I'm listening, that I will find the prompts and the action steps to take. But I find that when I grasp too hard to an outcome or a desire and try to make it happen, goal it, write it down type of thing, never suffered all the time. So I have found when I sort of walk with divine source in my life as my inspiration, life works for me, for who I am, and helps me bring my specific glow to the world, instead of me thinking, oh, I'm going to go make that happen. You can follow a recipe for a great outcome with a food item, right? But when it comes to life, sometimes we can get in our own way. And I can, of course, point to the brain aspect of that as well, the neuroscience behind that. But we often get in our own way to finding joy and happiness and meaning and purpose by thinking we know best. And a lot of times it's just, I want to feel connected. I want community. I want conversation. I want celebration, right? We'll see how that unfolds. And to understand it's a mystery out there. And with this perspective, it helps us also be an observer in life and not be so personally like it's up to us, because boy, there's enough ways to shame and blame ourselves all the time. When you walk in this particular way, you're not, there's no like, oh, what did I do wrong, right? And that's, to me, is what we need to avoid.
Oh, that is beautiful, Andy.
Yay!
Well, Andy, this has been a joy. It was a joy to meet you. I just love the serendipity of our paths crossing, and I'm excited about staying in touch with you and following you and seeing where life takes you, or where you take life, probably more accurately for Andy.
Thank you.
But it's just been a joy having you. So I'm so grateful for your time today.
It's an honor for me. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to share this message with other folks. To age out loud and proud, it is liberating.
It is. Amen. Amen, sister. Well, thanks again. Thanks again, Andy. You rock. You are truly making a difference for those seniors who want to break free from limiting self-beliefs. I look forward to the next time we get to hang out together. In the meantime, we'll leave today with the words of Betty Friedman, who said, "Aging is not lost youth, but a new stage of opportunity and strength." Go out and make it a great day.